Final hour Overdrive continues. Brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Now up on TSN 2. Rich Griffin later in the hour. Best Bets brought to you by FanDuel later in the hour. Pick is in. Timo and Wilson taking the points. Falcons plus 5.5 in Philly tonight.
Crazy pick.
Kirk Cousins on a Monday night. It's just, to me, that's a crazy play. I couldn't personally commit to it.
There's no way you would have made that pick.
The thing is, Atlanta's desperate. They're 0-1. I think they're a decent team. It's tough to get a read on Philly coming back from Brazil, but Green Bay played really well and really composed yesterday. Yet Green Bay needed that win. Like, they were 0-1. They had to have that win.
I like Kirk Cousins.
You're a fan of Kirk Cousins, all because of the Netflix show. That's
exactly.
the only reason.
That's the only reason why. But the Monday night thing might be a little bit of a...
Well, I mean, that's a trend thing. I don't know what to make of it.
You guys are all
But it is,
trends.
just like Josh Allen never loses on Thursday night. Kirk Cousins generally doesn't win on a Monday night. They're doing a hockey. It's tough to keep up with all the different documentaries.
Well, Willie's in it, right? The hockey.
Yeah, because it's like 25 players or something, isn't there?
Yeah.
This
Well,
year?
when are they going to release it? It's about last year.
No, it's this year, isn't it?
Honestly,
The hockey one.
I don't know why I brought it up without knowing the information because I don't know.
I'm almost positive they were following guys around last year.
No, I think it was this year. I think they're doing it this year.
Doogie, do you know anything about that or no? You have
Doogie,
no idea.
Doogie's got his
It's
laptop.
no idea.
He's on it.
He's
Doogie
on
will
it. I
find
think
out.
it's this year that they're following like Draisaitl, McDavid, Willie Nylander,
like
Quinn
Kachuk's
Hughes.
in it.
Yeah, Kachuk. Like I think it's this season.
CJ will know. Chris Johnson's coming. Although
Yeah.
we'll probably jam him up and ask him, and he won't know.
Yeah, we shouldn't have brought it up without knowing nothing
the
about
point
it.
I was trying to make, and I guess I'm proving the point, is there's so many now, it's tough to keep up. It's quarterback, it's wide receiver, there's a hockey one, then there's going to be a basketball one, there's a golf thing. Like, there's just so many.
You think it's watered down?
Well, it's gotten to the point where
Pay attention to it.
it's
Why?
cool, like the F1 stuff. Like, it's very well done.
Yeah.
It's incredibly well done, but there's so much of it that I guess it's impossible to keep up with all of it.
I think the hockey one you're thinking of that's coming out right away is the Montreal Canadiens one.
Well,
coming out in
that's a
couple
great
days.
example of like how crazy the world is, especially in a place like Montreal that has the highest of standards in the sport. 24 Cups. You talk to any Hab fan, they throw that in your face.
Yeah.
24, 24, 24. They are trying to monetize a rebuild.
Yeah.
Like that, if you said that to someone in 1987 on St.
They'd slap
Catherine
you in the
Street,
face.
they'd smack you in the face and say, don't ever say that again. Ever. That's disgusting. How dare you say that? In Montreal, they're like, let's celebrate the rebuild. Let's monetize the rebuild. Come behind the scenes. Kent Hughes is going to welcome you in. Hey, there's Jeff Gordon.
Yeah.
Hey, there's Patrick Laine in his Crocs. He just came in. Make sure you get a shot of that. Like it's
being
crazy.
It's
What's
being
going on?
released right now. I don't
I
think
understand
Patrick
that,
Laine
but
is
maybe it's an updated version.
His
Maybe-
green Crocs and his cow pants. Welcome aboard.
Welcome to the rebuild, brought to you by Netflix and Bell and
Prime
who knows
or
what
whatever.
else.
It is the ultimate shining of a turd, man, where you can say, we're going to shine this big giant turd up and
Yeah.
we're going to put it in a Netflix or whatever.
You got to
they're
see
doing.
it, man. You got to see it. The rebuild.
Check this out. Behind the scenes, you'll see the coach yelling.
Yeah.
You'll see guys sweating, and it's
Like what is the like what is that?
Dude,
Isn't the
I don't
rebuild-
want to. I'm not going to bash it because
I
it might
wanna
be
see
well
it.
done. I
I'm
don't
not
know,
saying
but
it
it
won't be
is
well done.
as far as a sports doc, it is the ultimate shining of a turd.
especially Montreal. That's where I emphasize. Now, at the same time, in order for it to work and pop, it has to be a big market and a big city, right? With all due respect to Carolina, let's use Jersey, one of my favorite targets. Jersey, the rebuild, has 14 streams. Nobody's watching that.
Well, in Montreal, they're watching.
But in Montreal, they want to because they have such an insatiable appetite for everything Habs.
and they will point to it and go, because I guarantee you they probably went through the drafting process and taking a look at some of these players coming out. We were talking about off air and on air on the weekend. Some of these young Montreal players, too, are really good and coming. So maybe in this rebuild, it shows them being picked, all of that type of stuff. And if they're really good 5 years from now, you point to it and go, hey,
that's
we
what I'm
watched
saying. But that's where my intrigue would be.
Right.
Not watching the tank. You know what I mean? I can't.
Yeah.
I can't. Hey, here's another game where Marty St. Louis is like, well, we're brutal tonight.
Yeah.
I need the access of the scouts and stuff. Like,
Well,
I don't
I'm
know how
hoping
you.
that's probably what it is.
That's how do you Scorsese that? I don't know.
Yeah.
But that will be in the art of the production is how you make, because the whole point of the rebuild is an understanding of the players that you're showing are not going to be a part of it when it works.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like player X is like, hey, I'm player X, and I understand. I'm only here to fill out the season because this is brutal, and I have no future here, and I understand that.
And when they're good,
but that's the truth.
They're not
like,
going to be
like with all due respect. There's guys playing for the Chicago White Sox right now. They're like, this is a disaster, and I'm on it, and I'm getting paid, and that's great. But I know when they turn the corner in 2 or 3 years,
Zero chance
I have
they'll be
0% chance of being here. So that is not interesting. What's interesting is why did you take Lane Hudson in the second round?
Right.
But how do you make a full episode out of that? How do you make a full episode out of Slavkovsky popping?
Yeah.
You know, that's the guy in the contract. Like, I'm very intrigued by that.
So you're saying when Toronto was rebuilding, you don't want to see Daniel Winnick and P.A. Parento
Exactly.
being
He's
interviewed.
a big day down at Leafs camp. P.A. Parento has been shifted onto the first line.
well, that's the thing.
Not
like,
interested.
You got to get to the storylines that are because nobody would want. People
But
shut it off.
you'd
Exactly.
probably be excited to go, hey, we're picking this Mitch Marner at 4.
Absolutely.
That's kind of
That
where
was-
you're,
yes.
hey, we Nylander at what? Was he 8 or
He was
7
at
or
8.
8?
Yep,
yeah,
he was at 8.
We're going to take this Willie Nylander kid at 8.
That's compelling content.
Right. Like that's probably what Montreal is doing. I'm excited to watch it. Maybe I'm the only one.
I mean, it's not even that it won't. I'm not saying it's not going to be. It's not going to be well produced, or Habs fans aren't going to appreciate it. What I'm saying is, it really is a sign of where the Habs are in the parity in the league and 32 teams.
Right.
Where like growing up in the 80s and early 90s, like the idea
Nobody would have thought of that.
The idea of saying the cameras are coming down to the Forum because you guys are brutal and we're going to produce a
just the
rebuild.
idea of saying, check this out.
Yes. Check this out, guys. Everyone
Yeah.
should be really excited. It's going to be bilingually produced. Everyone's excited, and we're promoting a rebuild. But that's where the Habs are at.
Yeah.
All right, here's Chris Johnston, our TSN Hockey Insider, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. What's your understanding of that? We're putting you on the spot here, CJ, but the Habs rebuild and the idea that this is going to be something that I guess a lot of people are really intrigued to see. Are you intrigued to see it, and are you at all surprised, considering the great history of the Montreal Canadiens, that they would be involved in something and basically try to monetize a blow-it-up, scorched earth rebuild?
You know, I'm just confused why P.A. Parento is catching strays. Like right when I got
He
dropped
did
in.
catch a stray.
That
there.
was
He
unnecessary.
did.
Well,
I was just gonna,
And he's a good
I
guy
will
too.
say,
Great guy.
I was a day-to-day reporter in those days, and he was a good guy to deal with in some tough times. So I don't want that to go unaddressed. But I don't know why the Canadiens did it. Honestly, in my understanding, like there's two different things, right? I don't know if you're aware of the Prime series that's going to come out this fall, which you know is a different level. It's more on the line of you know the full swing kind of documentary in golf, or the tennis one they did. The Canadiens one I think is a lower production one. I heard they were around the team only a select number of days last year, so it wasn't like a fully embedded type of situation. You know, I'm guessing the reason, honestly, I don't know the answer, but I'm guessing there was some form of payment that made it worthwhile for the Canadiens. And obviously, look, they're a team in a tough spot. They finished 5th or 6th worst in the standings last year. You know, a proud hockey market. They're trying to get people excited about the product, right? And so, you know, maybe this will do it. You know, I can't say I don't have any specific plans to watch it. I'm certainly looking forward to watching the Prime series, which, you know, I've heard a little bit about, like scuttlebutt behind the scenes. I think they got some really good content there. I know they were with William Nylander, for example, when he was injured during the first round, and watching playoff games, like not at the rink. And yeah, I think that it's going to offer a level of behind the scenes, you know, that you don't just get anywhere in hockey. And I think the quality of it will be really high. It's not to say the Canadiens won't. I don't know quite as much about it, and certainly doesn't have the league's push behind it. So, you know, on one hand, you have the Canadiens making a decision. On the other, it's not to be confused if you're, you know, just out there wondering what's going to come this fall. I know that Amazon series that was produced by Box to Box is going to come, and I think it's, you know, pretty interesting, compelling material they got.
Just to confirm, CJ, you said the Amazon people were following players last season and will be released in the fall, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Thank
they
you.
Have
Okay.
Actually,
All right.
They have a release that's coming up in September, I think a week from today, maybe, an official launch event. And then I don't know the exact day that the average person at home can watch it, but it's going to be pretty soon. And basically, they started talking to players or filming some of the background scenes late last season, I think maybe even around the All-Star weekend. And then a lot of it is going to focus on the playoffs and things that played out there. So,
I would zoom right fast forward to the finals if Kachuk's in it and Draisaitl and McDavid. I'd be like, that would fascinate me.
Yeah, that's incredible content.
If they talk about too, like Draisaitl, his rib injury, I think he got hurt against Vancouver and the hand, and same thing McDavid and Kachuk, like winning and all that. Like it's fascinating. I think I misspoke because I thought it was just starting this year. So, you were right.
We'll give you a flyer on that.
And
I had a point.
I was
on the
wrong.
Great question. That deserves.
No,
it doesn't. That's an accurate statement. It's a completely different.
You made an accurate
completely
statement.
different story. I'll give you a point because it's never going to happen again. I'll give you a rare, accurate statement point. But I think both are like. I'm not saying that the Habs one. If I'm a Habs fan, I'm all in on that because I'm living with this.
Yeah,
like it's got to hit the rebuild, the behind the scenes. I'm not as interested in the day-to-day behavior of the team or the day-to-day news of the team. It's more about where's it going, how's this game plan going to launch. I think that has the ability to actually stick out and be very different than some of the other documentaries, so to speak, which are more about, hey, the player's staying at his condo or he likes to go to this cafe. Again, cool stuff behind the scenes. I like the idea of the Habs one and the rebuild is actually very unique to me. It says something about the Habs, CJ, I guess is the point I'm making, and how like that cup they won was 31 years ago, and the 24 cups were 31 plus years ago, and it's just a sign of the reality of the times that there is a documentary about the rebuild, and it's like years in the making, because this is what Montreal's reality's been for a long time.
Well, and unfortunately for them, they went on that sort of miracle, unlikely run to the cup in the COVID days, right, against Tampa. I think most people have almost forgot about that. We're trying to wipe that memory from our memories. But, they didn't get the juice out of that a normal cup run would get for sure. I will say this. The one thing about all the behind-the-scenes shows is you wonder who has the ability to sort of scrub a certain scene, right? And I would say, generally speaking, when one team does one, more things are going to get taken out because there's sensitivity to this conversation or, this was caught on tape. Whereas, at least when a league is doing it, I don't think the teams have the same level of ability to remove aspects of the show. And so I think it's more likely to be interesting. We might get more, whatever it might be, whether it's animosity on the ice, whether it's discussions behind the scenes about do we address this player or not. I just think you're more likely to learn something. Whereas, even if you remember that Leafs, all or nothing series they did a couple of years back. I mean, I know a few people that were kind of involved with that. And from what I've heard, some of the footage that was left on the cutting room floor was outstanding, but we'll never see it because obviously the Leafs and the Players Association, everyone involved had agreed to come in and say, hey, that shouldn't belong there. So, I believe that the fan interest in these shows is to actually see more, but obviously the teams and everyone involved wants to sanitize things a little bit more than maybe the public would want.
CJ, what's your take on this Sid deal? Is this like locked up and a Penguin for life, or is there the opportunity for an out here if things are terrible? Or just what do you make of the whole deal in general?
It was a little surprised. I can understand at the number it came in at. We know, obviously, everything in our life is subject to inflation except for Sidney Crosby's contract, where he's just paid $8.7 million for 19 years. So kudos for him. I mean, obviously, that's a team-driven decision. I know he had people in his corner saying, hey, why don't you try 9.87 or 10.87 a year? I mean, there's ways to incorporate your number if you want to be superstitious about it but make more money. But he pushed aside on that. My bigger takeaway, though, is that it doesn't tell us he's a Penguin for life. I mean, certainly the control is entirely in his corner. He has a no movement clause in that contract. Obviously, he's signed now and basically till his 40th birthday. If he wants to stay there, he's got that right. But without trying to put anyone to sleep and drive anyone who on their commute home off the highway here, the reason that there's some interesting decisions made in that contract. The fact that he has signing bonuses in both years of it basically means that by the start of before he played the second season of the extension, he will have been played like 94% of the contract. And so and it's still a giant if, it's an unknowable sitting here 2 years away. But if he at that time wants to entertain a change, I think the Penguins could get a massive haul for him, assuming father time, and we hope it doesn't take him out at the knees in the next 2 years. But he would only be owed $1 million in actual dollars in the last year of that contract. the Penguins could easily eat half at that point in time if they haven't got back to respectability. Because the one thing I heard today when he spoke in Pittsburgh to the reporters there, all he said about his contract is he wants to win. And I think all of us on the outside are looking at it and just wondering, can they win in the short term? Can they win while he still has, some good years in those legs and those hands?
I can answer that for you, Chris. The answer is no. They're just not winning.
Right. So then the second question, if you believe that, is, will Sidney Crosby ever get to a place where he thinks he has to go somewhere else to win, or is he just going to be fine with that? And I don't know where he's going to land on that. Obviously, that's a decision that's not coming now. But in the next 1 or 2 summers, he's going to have to ask himself that question. If they do miss the playoffs again, if it's 3 years in a row at the playoffs this year, if it becomes 4 years in a row, does he want to move somewhere else knowing he's someone who values loyalty, that doesn't want to change? Or does he just sort of ride into the sunset? And I don't have that answer sitting here now.
With Chris Johnston, our TSN Hockey Insider. So between now and next Monday when we speak with you, the Leafs camp will open. They'll have hit the ice. They'll have played games. Putting, the first day commentary aside, including Marner, in terms of player personnel and the possible battles, decisions, conversations that will revolve around, the players themselves throughout camp. What do you think is at the top of your list, or what is at the top of your list that you'll be tracking and likely reporting on?
Well, I think, for all the discussion we have around this team all the time, the biggest thing we're going to learn in the next week is how a new head coach plans to attack this situation, right? Craig Berube had several months now to draw up his lines in his mind, to beat it around with his assistant coaches, to look at video, to do all the things he has to do to prepare for camp. But, once we get to Thursday and they get on the ice and they get into those exhibition games you're talking about, we're going to see how he sees the lines. And I know there's been talk, is Nylander going to be a center in this formation? Does he want to play Matthews and Marner together? Ultimately, when we talk about if the Leafs can have more success this season, if they can maybe unlock something, those are some of the decisions that will help determine how it's done. And Sheldon Keefe had a pretty long run here in Toronto and did things his way. And, I'm certainly not blaming it on coaching, but you get to a point now you've brought in a new voice to the organization and you're hoping that coach can draw something out. And so I think for me, when we're talking again, if it's next Monday or Tuesday, whatever it will be, we'll probably be breaking down what we're learning from Berube and how he's using the players. Beyond that, there's not a lot to learn. You're just hoping as a team that has playoff aspirations like the Leafs that you get through training camp and preseason without significant injuries to players, which unfortunately is just part of the deal, and that you can get up and running in the season. But it's all going to happen quickly now, and I'll be fascinated to see how he deploys and uses those top players, how he talks about them in the media, how, what the environment is, because, it can be a big change when you have a new coach, and we've had a long time to know what was happening, but now he actually really gets to put a stamp on things, that being Craig Berube.
Yeah. Well, and Tavares shows up on Wednesday, not the captain for the first time in 5 years, which I think it'll be more about Austin having it, but still, in order for him to have it, someone's got to be giving it up, and he's still a part of the team.
Yeah. Well, and he might be on the third line, right? And he might be asked about that. How do you feel, maybe he's not playing top power play minutes. I don't know these things, but I think that's some of the stuff that we're starting to dig into pretty quickly here.
Whew, man, if he starts on the third line in PP2.
But that's the evolution of a guy. He's not 28.
Maybe he should be there. But then if he's on the third line, who's on the second line? If it's
maybe it's Max Domi. Who knows? There's lots of questions still to be answered here in this preseason. You're going to give young guys a look, but you also have to. Craig Berube he knows these guys from the outside. He doesn't know them from the inside. So he's got to develop trust and in a hurry, kind of. You've got 2 weeks before you're dropping the puck here. So I would argue a lot of stuff might be laid out for him and say, well, you might want to try that there, might want to try that there. But in his mind, John Tavares might end up third line center, and just because that's where he is in his career. Nothing wrong with that.
It's crazy to say, but there's going to be a wait and see type approach with that guy. What is he going to bring to the table? What does he look like out there? Yeah. Does he look too good where you can't hold him off the second line? Maybe he does. Right. Maybe he doesn't.
Yeah, I hear you.
You also don't change a coach to do the same thing the last guy was doing, right? I think almost by design, I just expect to see some changes to start camp because that's kind of the deal.
Yeah, it seems like they have some turnover. There definitely are some new bodies here. It sounds like we were talking about this last week, CJ. They talk a big. Everyone does in every league with a salary cap. We want to establish competition and we want battles. That's bogus. The guys with guaranteed contracts, they've made the team.
They know who they. Yeah.
They know, like for the most part, Craig Berube has a pretty good idea of who's made the team. Short of how many? Pretty much a long time ago. Short of what? A 13th forward and who the 7th defenseman is going to be and who starts in goal opening night? Like, what else is there to... Like, yes, you can move pieces around, different special teams units, different combinations of lines, but I can't... I'm not bracing for anything shocking come opening night in terms of what I think we could mock the lineup to be basically right now, short of maybe Easton Cowan. Like, that's maybe the only wild card.
That's fair. It's probably one or two players. I mean, when camp started last year, Fraser Minton making the Leafs, even as brief as it was not on my radar. But that developed over those couple of weeks. They traded Sam Lafferty away to make it work roster-wise. I mean, you get the odd small surprise, but I'm with you. It's not like there's not 10 jobs up for grabs unless something bad happens and they have a lot of injuries and you're going to sort of a plan you never planned. But, probably where Nick Robertson slots in the lineup is in question. Max Pacioretty, same thing. Obviously they are kind of battling for some of the same minutes. You see where Cowan is at. I'm sure there'll be lots of debate, especially if he plays really well in the preseason. Internally, is it better even just to keep him around for a few weeks or a month if they can work it cap-wise to give him some NHL experience, knowing it's unlikely he's there all year? I mean, those are some of the things they have to work through, and I suppose at some point we'll probably get on to goaltending too and figure out how that's all going to shake down because last we saw Joseph Woll was unable to play Game 7 because he was injured.
Wouldn't that be a story? Matt Murray starting opening night. Just has an unreal camp.
What is the...
I'm getting chest stiffness.
There will be a FanDuel
Hearing
odd.
that?
Yes.
There will be a FanDuel odd. Matt Murray.
Over under 4.5 starts for Matt Murray this year.
I saw some. I think
Under.
it was our buddy Carter Hutton said he's never seen. He said Matt. I think it was just a tweet where it was Carter Hutton.
Yeah, Carter's a great guy.
Yeah, and he's like Matt Murray's never looked better than he does right now.
CJ, over under 4.5 starts for Matt Murray.
I'm taking the over, man.
Wow. What?
Over the number.
See, I think this
I'm
Hildeby
not
kid
doing
has
this
a chance
year.
to get some games this year.
Yeah?
Apparently, he
doing
played
this
very
year.
well on the weekend in Montreal. He's a monster of a goalie. 6'7".
Doing this year.
We are doing it.
I guarantee you, TSN's first game of the year, Matt Murray comes bombing out, and he's starting. Lock it in, and you better be prepared to talk
Whoever
about
is
it.
my camera person, lock it in on me because my face might just erupt.
Yeah. All right. Let's see what
I
happens.
don't have the numbers. I should have done my research, but what Stolarz has never played 30 games? Has Joseph Woll played more than 30 games? I mean,
No, he's
the
only
numbers-
played 39 career.
Career games over the course of 2 years.
in the NHL, I
Yeah.
I just think the odds suggest there's going to be a third player involved there, and right now that's Matt Murray.
I'm on board with that.
I'm on Hildeby.
I'm supporting Matt Murray.
Sorry, Joseph
that on
Woll
the
has played
record.
36.
Dude, I am too. But go in there
What
and
happens if he
play
just
and play
plays off
good.
waivers at the end of camp.
Yeah. Do they have to put him on waivers?
Yes.
Yeah,
If they want him to go
he's gonna be
down.
sent down.
Watch
Yeah.
them lose. Matt Murray goes and wins a Vezina somewhere. That'll be the next big. That's the next Seth Jarvis.
Oh, yes.
Matt Murray winning a Vezina, losing him on waivers.
Well,
Anyway. All right, CJ. We'll see what the first week has in store. Thank you, buddy.
Thanks for not even taking one shot at the Cowboys.
No,
I
we're
appreciate
leaving you
that.
alone. They're
It was
1-1.
a tough Sunday.
Sunday. LeBron was in attendance.
oh, no.
Pierre flew down to see that game. That's sick, man. I should have sent him a note last night. I forgot. How did I not goof on him when he was in the building?
And before everything went wrong, he sent me a photo from his seats, and let me tell you, he did not buy the cheap seats. He was in like the club lounge.
Oh, enjoying himself.
He went deep on that, and he was down 35 whatever at halftime.
Oh, man, that was pathetic. That really was awful. Derek Carr looked like prime Joe Montana.
He did
Not
look good.
Not good for your boys. Not good for your Cowboys. It's early, CJ. You'll be fine.
Oh yeah, I'm used to them losing. I'm not from the generation where they won, so this is normal for me.
Exactly. Yeah, just nothing to see here. It's all good. Thank you, buddy.
All right, boys. See ya.
Chris Johnston joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Check out Maple Toyota's huge truck and SUV lineup, including Tundra, 4Runner, Highlander, and Grand Highlander in stock and ready to deliver. Visit mapletoyota.com. Over 4.5 starts for Matt Murray.
No, it's under.
Over. How can you have faith in Joseph Woll playing anywhere close to 41 games until he actually does it? Like, yeah. I'm pulling for the kid. I'm not saying that as a slight. He has to prove that he can do that.
That's
just
fair.
like Easton Cowan has to prove he can play in the NHL.
Fair, yeah.
Like, Woll has to prove he can stay healthy and play.
Yeah.
Because his talent and his ability means you can play.
Right.
Pencil him in for 50 if he's healthy right now. But he's got to get to that number. And Stollar's, big guy, played well, good team.
Yeah.
He's never proven that he can play that long. He's not a
question mark, man. It's a big question mark.
Matt Murray, over 4.5 starts.
I'm telling you, this Hildeby is, they like
Hildeby, they like? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. You're on Team Hildeby.
I am.
See, Clayton Keller was saying that he thinks that Utah team will be called the Yeti. Utah Yeti.
What did you call it? What was
Mammoth?
The Mammoth. I think Yeti. I heard from somebody that the reason they haven't announced it, it's kind of tied up in trademark issues.
Well, Yeti's the company, right? That
isn't it Yeti?
does all the coolers and
yes,
stuff.
Yeah, because my kids have Yeti.
Oh yeah, they make a ton of things. Yeti,
Yeah.
man. They make. I just bought a few of those down at that Team Town Sports. There's a new cool store too, and they had Yeti. I got in there. I'm like, I'm buying a few of these. Like, I'm gonna pick up a couple of these right now. Maybe in support of Utah. I'm coming around. Maybe I'm on Matt Murray on a lot of starts.
So what? Did Clayton Keller just let it slip in a?
I don't know. That's what I read today. That Keller said, I think it might be the Yeti, but who knows?
Did Clayton Keller make your top 50 list?
I'd have to go back and review. He
made
probably
mine.
should have.
He made mine. I squeaked him in there really late.
I don't believe he was on mine.
I'm not. He had a good year last year.
Yeah, it was sneaky, but I snuck him in there.
I don't think I did have him
late. Yeah,
I snuck someone in late where I'm like, I gotta have him.
I took a flyer to a late one.
Let's take a break and tell me who it is.
All right, I'll tell you who it is. Richard Griffin coming up as well. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, Best Bets brought to you by FanDuel later in the hour. A little same-game parlay on the Monday nighter Eagles-Falcons. Eagles laying 5.5 at home. Home opener in Philly. ESPN's there. Jason Kelsey's there. It's always interesting when you see a guy that just retired, but now is in media, but now he's going back to where he played forever. He's a legend, and he's basically, there's video of him just partying everywhere.
Dancing on stage.
Yeah.
Enjoying his life.
Which is great.
Yeah.
But then he's got to go on the panel and talk about the game tonight.
That's tough to balance.
It's a tough balance.
Because when you're all gooned up and you got to, get it together to go on air.
Mm-hmm.
What is the vibe on Brady's second week?
I thought he was better yesterday.
More lively.
I liked it,
you could see he was trying to really, show a
some
little bit more
personality,
emotional, you know, and he was going nuts with CeeDee Lamb had a great catch and touchdown, and he kind of
he was good. He was better.
He's getting there.
Yeah,
don't worry
I'm
about
telling
Tom,
you, week
he'll be
5
fine.
he will be fine. But he was better yesterday.
You've decided you're not commenting on him anymore, are you?
I'm going to leave it alone.
Somebody got to you or
no?
what?
Yes, Tom Brady's his henchman showed up at my door over the weekend. Said, "Leave Tom alone." Listen, the jury's still out on Tom Brady as a media personality. You know, I was skeptical when he signed it. I told you guys were on with me. It was a year and a half ago. I'm like, I don't think of him as a media personality. I don't think of him as a guy that's overly interesting.
I don't think he's doing this 10 years from now.
No, I'm not sure he will be either. All right, the Jays had themselves a good weekend, and man, they're talking. Schneider's talking, Bassett's talking, Springer's talking. And Schneider had an interesting response because John Heyman on September 11th tweeted out, Heyman's of MLB Network. He's been writing in New York forever. He's a big insider in the game.
Yeah.
Got a pretty big voice in baseball. Tweeted out, the Blue Jays don't play the game right or well. That's a pretty harsh criticism of a baseball team.
I'm not going to lie. It sounds like an 8-drink tweet. You know what I mean? Where you're just you're half in the bag and you're like, the Jays, and you just hammer out the tweet.
It is weird from him
to
tweet that out. Now, as the Grappler pointed out, Heyman was also the guy who was openly advocating for Ohtani just not to come here, saying it would be bad for baseball. Toronto's a nothing market, blah, blah, blah.
So he hates Toronto.
There might be a conspiracy there. But anyway, Schneider, in response to the Heyman tweet, said, quote, there's a lot of people that think they can be a manager, think they can be a GM. If they've done it, I'll listen to those comments. If they haven't done it, I've got enough other stuff to deal with. That was a tweet courtesy of our next guest from griffsthepitch.com. Here's our buddy Richard Griffin. What do you make of that response from Schneider on the Heyman tweet?
Hey, man, how are you? I just, before I get into that, I just wanted you to be the first to know, Hayes, that I'm working on a script called Toronto Blue Jays, The Rebuild.
Okay, good. I'm in. I'm very compelled by that
That would be riveting,
idea.
Griff.
They take the money. They take the money.
Yeah, we'll watch it.
All right. Full access. I love it.
The first hour, we're going to spend trying to find the GM.
Yes.
The second hour, we're going to interview people on the bus. The third hour, people under the bus.
I love it. That sounds like a winner to me. That's going to win some awards, Griff. If you need support, we're here to help you out.
I need all the support I can get. But,
Okay.
With regard to Heyman, it's funny because I asked a question to John Schneider on Saturday before the game. So they hadn't swept the Cardinals yet. So he was in a bit of a cantankerous mood. They were still 8 games under 500 at the time. And I didn't include the whole quote because I refuse to pay for the extra space from Elon Musk. So the rest of it was he's got a lot of followers on Twitter. He's never managed and he's paid to write controversial stuff. But until he's managed the game, he can write whatever he wants. He doesn't see a lot of our games. He doesn't care a lot for the one team in Canada. And he doesn't understand how teams are built or how they're operated these days. I take it with a grain of salt. And then he got into the quote that was on Twitter. So, I mean, I don't begrudge John Schneider the ability to go back against somebody who really hasn't seen any of the games. And as you pointed out, Hayes has a history of dismissing Toronto Blue Jays and the importance of baseball in Canada.
Griff, I don't like to see anybody get fired or lose their job, but if I had told you before this season, which I'm sure you knew a lot of this was coming, that this would have played out the way it played out and everyone would still be in place, would you have been shocked by that?
I would not have been shocked, but I will be shocked if everyone is still in place at the winter meetings in December. I would be shocked. My guess and what I would do is I would replace the GM because we've talked about it before. Moving forward, if you're going to sell the concept of this team rebuilding in a hurry, of being competitive in 2025, if you're going to sell Vlad Guerrero on signing the next 9 or 10 years of his future away to this franchise and then have him go out and sell the ability to other free agents of joining a team that's going to bounce back, then I don't think Ross Atkins can be that guy. I don't think the current GM, after 9 years going into a 10th year without a postseason win, can be that guy if you're honestly trying to rebuild in that much of a hurry. But that they would have survived this season, I would not have been that surprised because they played the Cardinals on the weekend. The Cardinals are a team that usually is in the postseason hunt. They were not this year, and they played like the team that was disinterested and just playing out the string, while the Jays showed a certain amount of passion and wanting to finish the season strong. I mean, theirs is more of an individual thing where they got all these young kids trying to earn a spot for 2025, but still, they're at least playing hard for the last 20 games.
With Richard Griffin, so that assessment of the GM, I maybe would suggest filtering that through Chris Bassett, because it sounds as if Chris would disagree with you, because Bassett was speaking on, how the fans have been reacting to this season, and he said, quote, "I don't blame Ross. I sure as heck don't blame Mark Shapiro or John Schneider. Player accountability is massive, and I think we have that here. It's just for whatever reason, Blue Jay fans don't want to yell at players. They want to yell at Ross. I don't know why," end quote. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I really haven't listened to Chris Bassett since he blamed the roof being closed for the lack of movement on his pitches.
Okay.
And he looked us right in the eye and said that was the reason. So, but a lot of players fall into the trap of talking to an American broadcast or podcast and thinking that we don't see it back here in Canada and that it's just among friends. We're just talking among friends. And I think, as you pointed out when opening the show today, He's trying to make up for the fact that he blew that. He screwed that up when he went on Chris Rose's show. Mm-hmm. And J.P. Ricciardi used to tell me that, he said, "What's wrong with the fans here? They never get on the players. They just get on the GM and the manager and the front office." And he's right. And I've always thought that there was a huge difference. And O-Dog, you and Jamie know that. Oh, sorry, you too, Hayes.
Thank you.
Right?
Good correction there, Griff.
Yeah, boy, Griff.
But that every fan of hockey thinks they know better, thinks that they know what the players should have been doing and that they screwed up, and so they feel that they can get on the players. But in baseball, it's more of a mystery. It's more of a second sport or a third sport for some. And so the obvious option is to just get on management, say you're not getting the right players here. And I found that as a manager of youth baseball, like 19 to 22, they thought I was a genius because I would win games with different strategies. And then I went to my son's game, rep hockey, and everybody was screaming because they all knew how much ice time guys were getting, who should have been getting more ice time. And so I think baseball is more of a mystery sport. So to explain to Chris Bassett, it's not the number one sport in the minds of most fans, sports fans in Toronto, so they get on the easy target, which is the GM.
Yeah, I think there's a part of that. I think there's always been an obsession with the management and the building of a championship team here forever. Part of that is also I think the separation also between baseball and hockey is there's an effort element to hockey that's an intangible. You can say, well, that guy was mailing it in. With baseball, you can be mailing it in. Like you said, the Cardinals, if you look disinterested, it sticks out.
Yeah.
But, Springer in the box with a career low OPS of 678. But I think George is trying. It's just not working. Like, it's a different evaluation. It's a different criticism.
Dude, everyone's trying.
Sure.
But that's the whole point. That's what I'm saying. But in baseball, like, it really is. It's also, I think baseball is a victim of its own, the way it operates now, where it is all based on numbers and analytics and the number, and all that kind of stuff, where effort plays, they don't exist as much anymore.
Nor does anyone care.
Exactly. It's like, it doesn't matter that he botched that double play. It doesn't matter that he got picked off at first. Look he's got a 925 OPS. Like, okay.
Yeah, I think a lot of the problem with baseball, and you mentioned it just a second ago, Hayes, is that there's too much access for cameras into the dugout. So the dugout is where the players are for 3 hours, and you see them smiling and laughing, and a fan might be at home angsting over the fact that they just blew a chance to score with the bases loaded and one out, and the players are smiling and laughing. They got the home run jacket. They seem to be having fun. In fact, they broke up that fun gang when they when they got rid of Teo and when they got rid of Lourdes Gurriel Jr. So I think that the access that fans have into the privacy of the dugout, and that might sound old school, but I really believe that fans believe that the players should care every waking moment as much as they do at home.
Mm-hmm. Griff, you mentioned Vladdy and the Blue Jays possibly attempting or wanting to hitch their wagon to him for a long-term deal. Do you think that he is just a talented player, or is he a young player that's going to help take the organization where everyone else wants it to go? Because I look at the kid in Kansas City, Bobby Witt Jr., it's like the young stud, but there's also the intangibles that go with it where it's like that's the guy that you want to hitch everything to, and he's going to take you to the promised land. Do you see Vladdy in that light, or do you just see him as a talented player?
No, I see him in that light if there's someone else with him. I mean, he's not your traditional leader, your gung-ho, grab somebody and shake them and say, hey, get with the program.
What if that guy with him is Bo Bichette? Is that the right guy?
It doesn't seem that way. I thought so. We argued on this show earlier in the season that they needed to sign both. But I think that they need to sign a second player. But I'm not so sure anymore that it's Bo. But I definitely feel that Vlad is. And if you're a top 10 payroll team in any sport, and the Jays are a top 10 payroll team in baseball. And why would you think that you shouldn't have a top 10 salaried player like Vlad? If he's paid $300 million, so be it. For 10 years. I think that I did a study. I'm going to do a column early this week about where he stands and comparisons with teams that build around a certain player. I think he's right in that group. He's right in the $300 million 10-year group, and I think that you can build around him as long as there's at least one other player to carry the offensive load. And for George Springer to say, well, if I had played better and if Bo had been healthy, imagine what his numbers would be and where we would be. I think that's a little bit of BS and rewriting of history because Bo was healthy. He wasn't playing well, and Vlad was having his worst months of the season. So, you can't go out and say that. You have to go out on the field and do something about it. And Springer seems to be on the downside, so he's not going to be that second guy that Vlad needs. They need to go outside the organization, sign somebody for 2025 if they, in fact, want to rebuild in that much of a hurry, which they do, and let her rip at spring training.
Yeah, we'll see. A lot of time to figure that out. All right, Richard, we always appreciate you doing this for us. We'll do it again soon.
All right, guys, anytime.
Richard Griffin of griffsthepitch.com.
He's the best.
Right, Griff's been around. He's seen it all, man. He's seen it all. And, it's interesting, like, what they end up doing here. If they end up
a huge offseason
keeping everyone together.
Is it not?
Oh, it's massive, yeah. I mean, because this year, this has been a really painful season.
Yes.
Like, it's been a really difficult year. And it was pretty evident early that they just didn't have the makings of a competitive team, that it wasn't going to turn around. It never did. And they're going to be running on, we've made the playoffs and we were competitive.
Right.
But when you take the scope out, you look at it big picture, Shapiro and Atkins, they've been here a long time. Yeah. Never won a playoff game. Never won the division, never won a playoff game.
I think
that's why people are focused on them.
Like, if I'm top of the mountain overseeing this, I think it's a great opportunity for a fresh look to come aboard and say there's some things that I like here that I can do differently and put a fresh spin on it for the fan base, for the whole building being new, everything, as opposed to just saying these guys that have been leading the charge here are going to continue to do so. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I like those guys. They come on our show. They're nice guys. Mm-hmm. I don't like seeing guys lose their job, but as far as like sports, I know how sports works. It would be a great opportunity for a different
That's
view.
It. Exactly. If you take out the name and the people and you just say this is Team X and this is person Y, person Z, you look at it and say, that one's tough. Like, that's a tough one to survive. Again, top 10 payroll, bordering on bottom 10 team, bottom 10 farm system. It's tough to sell.
You can't have all those things bottom. Like,
and guys are getting old. Like George Springer, you're stuck with George, but it's going to get worse.
Right.
It's going to get worse for George Springer the next 2 years.
Well, you're not. You've said this before with other teams. They're not one player away. Like they're
they're a full bullpen away almost.
Right,
like their bullpen is such a disaster, and it has been all year. And again, you need superstars in pro sports. Okay, Vladdy, let's say he does the same thing next year. Awesome. Who's number 2? Like, that's what Griff's saying. You look at New York, it's Soto and Judge. LA, it's Ohtani, it's Betts, it's Freeman. Like every great team, elite team has like multiple guys who terrify you at the plate. Right. Jays don't have that. They have one guy.
Remember when the Grappler said Nate Pearson was the next, what was it?
Randy Johnson. Yeah.
You might need him.
Randy Johnson.
A mulligan on that.
Yeah, well, I think the jury's in on that take. It was a swing and a miss for the Grappler. Best Bets brought to you by FanDuel coming up.
He was so bullish on it, too.
I mean, it was an outrage. Like, Randy Johnson is legitimately one of the, 7 or 8 greatest pitchers ever.
No.
Like that, if you had said, hey, maybe he's the next Marcus Stroman or something, hey, this guy can have like
Chicago now with the Cubs.
Pearson, he's been jumping around. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an awful
Randy
take
Johnson.
from the Grappler.
Not Randy Johnson. All right, Best Bets brought to you by FanDuel. Coming up, Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, Overdrive is going to be broadcasting live from the President's Cup in Montreal next week, and we want you to be there too. If you heard the keyword announced today on First Up, call us right now, 416-870-1050. 416-870-1050. The first caller through with today's keyword qualifies to win the trip. Full details at tsn1050.ca. There you go. Best bets brought to you by FanDuel.
We'll be
Falcons
there.
plus 5.5. We will be there. On the Falcons plus 5.5 as a show here. And Bijan Robinson, 60-plus yards rushing tonight. Parlay paying plus 138.
Bijan.
Right? Bijan. What did I say?
Bijan.
It's a long day, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
Bijan Robinson.
My guy, Bijan. Aaron.
Today's best bets powered by FanDuel. FanDuel is the home for popular parlays this NFL season. Please play responsibly. 18 plus. Physically located in Ontario.
Kirk Cousins.
Kirk Cousins under the lights. Everyone's on the Falcons plus 5.5 tonight. All right. Thanks to everyone behind the scenes for helping out. We appreciate it, as always. Everyone for tuning in today. TV, radio, podcast, web. We appreciate that. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy the games tonight. We're back tomorrow at...
Bijan, my guy. 4 p.m.
We'll chat then.